I was a kid, I absolutely hated to read. When I entered grade 3, my teacher decided to start a small competition. She said that for every book we read, we would get a gold star. This is just one of many examples where students are motivated through a reward system. The Oxford Dictionary defines a reward as a thing given in recognition of service, effort, or achievement. I asked several of my friends and family the first few words that came to their mind when I said the term reward. Replies ranged from stickers, money, presents, medals, success. We can see that the term rewards resonates very positively in our minds, and we tend to associate it with things that we want or things that make us happy. However, looking deeper, we can also perceive that all of these have rather monetary and materialistic connotations. All of the people interviewed agreed that rewards should be much more intrinsically valuable to us. However, the reward system that has been created by society has been geared towards these tangible and extrinsic concepts. This construct, though, can sadly prove harmful for us. I was a very competitive kid, and so when my teacher started this competition, my eyes were very much on the prize. I wanted to get the most gold stars and obtain the prize that she was offering, so I started to read voraciously. However, I found myself gravitating towards books that were thin or that were easier to read. I recognized that I could get through them faster and obtain a gold star quicker. This is one of the issues with a reward system. Rewards can act as an incentive, but what they really motivate us to do is obtain that arbitrary reward, rather than encouraging us to enjoy the activity that we're undertaking to its full potential and recognize its importance. Many parents give their children money and other such attractive returns in exchange for doing household chores. This can make a child understand the value of money. However, over time, children can begin to place a value on household chores, not viewing them as responsible behaviors or important contributions to family life, but rather as a means to an end. A similar scenario occurs when parents reward children for getting good grades. In the short run, it can make a student more motivated to enhance their academic success. However, their motivation in some cases can steadily be driven not necessarily by a love for learning or an impulse to improve, but rather that financial or material incentive. In the long run, this can mean that students don't have that inherent desire needed to achieve their goals. Teachers and parents are considered one of the primary givers of rewards. However, the high school system in itself is a reward system, with good grades being a reward for studying and working hard. Alfie Kahn was an author who conducted extensive research into learning. He said that learning is more important than the product that results. However, we're seeing an increasing number of students who are becoming more preoccupied with the final number, our reward, rather than the actual process of learning to obtain it. This outlook can undermine our desire to learn for the sake of learning. One of the first questions a student might ask in class is this going to be on the test? If the answer is no, we aren't excited to learn something new and extend our knowledge. Rather, we sigh and we moan about learning something that we don't need to know. The important word here is need. We've begun to place some knowledge over others, considering it a necessity, but only because it helps us attain that reward that we're aiming for. A problem also occurs in a similar mechanism of placement when individuals start to pick easier tasks over more challenging ones because it's easier for them to obtain the reward. The sentiment is that, in order for me to achieve a reward, I will expend the least effort and difficulty required in order to obtain it. When this attitude carries over to our approach to learning, it can actually debilitate our intellectual exploration. I can pass up more challenging tasks that may extend my abilities for easier tasks that I feel more comfortable with, knowing that there are a safer way for me to get the reward. It's no surprise then that grade orientation, our focus on getting a grade, has been shown to be inversely related to learning orientation, our focus on the learning process in itself. This premise has been developed further by studies showing that a student's potential and academic achievement is maximized not when they're given grades or even a combination of grades and feedback, but only when they're given feedback, as this helps the student improve their process of learning, not just the result in itself. Perhaps this is the reason why many institutions have started moving away from meta grades in favor of more feedback-based evaluations. An example of this is the liberal arts college in the United States, the Sarah Lawrence College. Students are given grades only for transfer purposes. The students themselves are given academic evaluations that outline their strengths and weaknesses. The college aims to create an environment in which a student is driven by their interests, desires, and goals, rather than that final number. It's also important to note that the high school reward system tends to reward the students at the top. An individual could have improved their own work drastically, but this will go largely unnoticed and unrecognized by the wider community in exchange for people who are hitting those top bands. Slowly, when an individual has constantly been incentivized through rewards, it can be harmful when we remove those rewards. Good behavior can cease when the reward stops because individuals lack that intrinsic desire needed to continue without the reward. Our performance can be further reduced when we're getting that reward, but we tend to expect it. For example, if I get $5 for doing the dishes, I would find it difficult to do the same task for a reward of less than $5. So we can see that we aren't improving our potential in getting that reward, but we always expect that reward to improve, because we'll never do a task for less than a reward of what we did it before. This is the concept of satiation. Slowly, when we begin to expect that reward, that star or sticker, the effect of it can actually become reduced. Dopamine is a neurotransmitter in our brain, and it's linked to the reward system. Hopefully, looking at some of these pictures, dopamine will have released in your brain because it's known as the feel-good chemical. And that's why it releases when we receive a reward, because receiving a reward makes us feel happy. However, we can see that dopamine is also linked to memory. And that means that when we get a reward, we tend to start associating that action with the reward that we're going to be given. For example, if every time I receive an A, I get a plate of cookies, I'll begin to associate those two actions together. Later on in life, when I want to recreate that feeling of accomplishment, I'll turn to that plate of cookies. And this is where we get the idea of comfort food. This can become dangerous though when we stop viewing food as nourishment, but rather as a reward. For example, when we go out and exercise and say, oh, I can now afford to eat that fatty burger. Rewards help us rationalize our decisions, but in a negative manner at times. I don't even remember the prize I was aiming for so fervently back in grade 3. What has stuck with me is the process, because that system pushed me to start reading. And somewhere along the way of reading those thin books and those easier reads, I came to realize that I love to read. And this is where the true value of the reward system lies, in introducing us to new activities, ideas, and heights, in the hope that we find that self-motivation and passion. It's when we lose sight of this objective that rewards become worthless, leading us to strive not for knowledge, but for a cycle of material gain. Thank you.